Absolutely not. I think that this is probably really the most egregious judicial legal scandal that we've seen in the history of the American legal system.
So talk us through this case or these cases. How were these judges able to imprison so many young children, even first-time offenders, on the pettiest of crimes?
I think it really was a combination of both their own greed, their own mindset about really not caring about the well-being and the welfare of children. I think there was a lot of complacency and complicity by individuals in the courtroom. These kids essentially were paraded before Judge Mark Chivarella. They were denied their right to counsel in most of the cases in which they appeared. The proceedings took about 60 to 90 seconds, and they were very quickly adjudicated delinquent and sent off to various juvenile correctional facilities in Pennsylvania. And it happened because people didn't care. They had the ability to do it. They had the will to do it. And people watching really didn't stand up and raise concerns about it.
Having represented some of the plaintiffs, what did they tell you and what did they tell the court about their experiences that have stayed with you?
I think that what is really important to understand about this case is, first of all, that most of these children did petty crimes. What they did was a lot of typical adolescent misconduct. We're not talking about kids who were charged with violent offenses at all in this particular circumstance. And they were literally ripped from their mothers, from their fathers in the courtroom. They were handcuffed and shackled and led away. And I think we have to try to think about ourselves as children, what that would feel like for us. They were placed in facilities, oftentimes with kids who had been adjudicated for serious crimes, limited contact with their parents, deprived of the opportunity to continue with their high school, secondary education. There were so many things that they lost during this critical period, I think, of growing up and of adolescent development that in many ways they'll never really get back.
Now, it's been said that it's very unlikely that the victims will see any of this $288 million in damages. Why is that?
The judges don't really have any assets. Both of the judges were convicted, Conahan in 2011 and Chivarella in 2014. Chivarella was sentenced to 28 years in prison. He is still in prison. Conahan was sentenced to 17 years in prison. He was actually released during COVID on compassionate release, but he is under house arrest. I think that their assets were probably transferred before they were convicted. They certainly have not earned anything while they have been in prison. They really have no earning capacity. So I don't think this is money that is going to wind up in the hands of these children, but it is an incredibly huge and important symbolic victory.
Have any measures been put in place to stop something like this happening again?
Yes. I mean, certainly kids' due process rights are protected here in Pennsylvania, and I think that we're not going to see the kind of travesty of justice that happened routinely in this courtroom between 2003 and 2008. The fact that the judges were able to take kickbacks of roughly $3 million from the developer of a private, not private for-profit facility, I think was a part of a process of just a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability. I think that everyone is kind of on watch now to try to be attentive to those kinds of things. I think the whole community came together after this to recognize that these are our kids and we need to be watching out for them.
What other measures do you believe should be put in place? Is there more that could be done here?
I think that more that can be done is that in the U.S., our juvenile justice system is very punitive and we lock up too many kids. So this is a case that was about locking up children in facilities for very minor crimes. We need to continue, I think, to really pay attention to how we can keep kids at home and in their communities and provide services and resources under those circumstances rather than taking them away from their families and from their schools.
Now, you've been quoted saying the fact that a federal court has recognised the gravity of what the judges did is a victory in itself. You've told us the same thing tonight. But does it go far enough?
You know, It's what we have. And what I mean by that is we can't magically produce $200 million, over $200 million out of the pockets of these judges. That's not going to happen. I think it's critically important, though, because first of all, I do think that the judge has told us what the value of this harm was. And the value of this harm, the price that someone would have to pay for doing this to children, is enormous. Over $200 million is an unprecedented figure. And the court also really, I think, provided a roadmap or a blueprint for other cases going forward. He valued what these children lost at $1,000 a day for every day that they were incarcerated. That's not limited to this case. That can be applied in every case going forward where children are wrongfully detained in correctional facilities, and I hope that happens.
Marsha Levick, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your devotion to this case as well.
Thank you so much.